We've all been there, planning tomorrow with excitement about all the things that are gonna change, then hitting snooze 5 times the very next day. Losing precious hours of time scrolling Instagram Reels, going on TikTok and watching videos, when you know you should be doing the thing, what you said you'd do weeks ago. And all that pressure and discomfort just builds up as you realize you're not living up to your potential. And all that buildup just snaps and you think, I've got to get my shit together. And that's where the art of discipline comes in. So I'm Dan, and this is the story of how I use discipline to build my dream life, a life of achievement, fulfillment, and purpose. And I lived life like pretty much everyone else, an average life. I grew up in a middle-class family, and I went to school. I would play football, play sports, play video games, hang out with friends, you know, the usual. And that's how it went. Life was pretty good, you know, I can't complain. I'm grateful for everything. It was only until I got to high school that I started to feel uncertain of myself, a bit anxious, you know, a bit like, I mean, the best way I can describe it is really, I knew I was destined for more. I knew something wasn't right. And before I knew it, high school was over. I graduated and I had to decide what I was going to do with my life. But truth is, I didn't even know. And I pretty much had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So I just took the normal path. My plan was to study at university, get a degree, and then get a job. And everybody around me was telling me the same thing, that this is the successful path. This is how you're going to make it in life. This is how you're going to become the best. But in my mind, you know, I just couldn't shake away the thought of, you know, you're studying something that doesn't interest you just so you can qualify to work a job that you hate, just to buy things that you don't even need. In my mind, that was kind of the thought process. Everybody has their opinions. That's just my personal opinion. That's the way I see things. So I went with the crowd. First semester at uni, I just pretty much partied. I went out with friends. I just enjoyed life pretty much. And life was pretty good, you know, life was fun. But at some point, it just like, no amount of escapism and no amount of coping was gonna fill the void that I still had. You know, that emptiness, that feeling that something wasn't quite right. And that was like the drive and feeling of, I wanna be great, you know, I wanna do something, I wanna be successful. That pressure just built up and I eventually snapped, you know? So I started off my journey and I started researching business models just for days and days and days. I was just researching, finding out how to make money online, how to just start something and do something. And I started trying pretty much everything that everybody else has tried. You know, I tried drop shipping, I tried e-com, I tried running an agency, and I just tried so many things and I failed and I tried and I failed again. And nothing stuck. But then one day I had the thought occur to me, why don't I start a YouTube channel? So I did, you know, this was like the closest thing that I could do to get my foot in the door as to wanting to start something. So I started my first faceless editing YouTube channel, and it wasn't this, it was another one. And I built that up to 10K subs in around 7 months. And then I started this channel that you're watching the video on because I knew that at the beginning, I always wanted to be on camera, but it was just like, you know, I was afraid. And that's why I started the first channel. It was like a cope of not being on camera, but I knew the only thing that was going to solve my fear was just being on camera and just starting. So what I did was I overcame my fear. I just put everything aside and I made my first video on my iPhone and I just uploaded it to YouTube. And you can even check on this channel on shorts. You can go to the oldest content section and you can find the reel over there. September 18th, 2023. That was the day that it all began. And you see, I started talking about the things that meant the most to me. I didn't really choose my niche. I didn't choose my channel direction and what I was going to talk about. It was just my life. You know, I was spending my days reading, journaling, like meditating, going to the gym, studying for uni, doing calisthenics. And I was living that life and I was obsessed with it. And that's why I started just naturally talking about these things. And everything I've been through before this point has led up to just me being on this self-improvement path and wanting to get better. So I started uploading every single day. It took me 10 months to hit my first 1,000 subscribers. And then another 9 months after that, I hit my first 10,000 subscribers. And another 3 months after that, I hit my first 25,000 subscribers. And now another 4 months later, we're close to 50K. And somewhere in between, I also started an unfiltered YouTube channel where it's just me talking to the camera, no edits, nothing. And that took me around 11 months to hit my first 1,000 subs. You see, around a year ago, I started to get really obsessed with YouTube, making videos, editing, just being in the game and creating. And the hardest part was I had to balance uni, you know, general life, self-improvement, going to the gym, hanging out with friends, as well as YouTube. And the truth is, I knew that YouTube was my vision. I knew I wanted to do this full time. Like from the very start, I always had this seed planted in my mind. And because of that, the fact that I couldn't go all in, it always left some like emotional residue in my mind. And this is something that I would literally think about all day, every day. So the fact that I couldn't go all in really bugged me. And then because of that, I felt stuck. I felt lost. I felt, you know, really just like in my head. And I started to, you know, obviously go back to some bad habits, lose focus and lose purpose for some time, and it was pretty much a dark time, I could say. And I just sat with that feeling for a while. I just went about my normal life. You know, I was continuing to study, continuing to do my life and do the things. But, you know, it just kept building up. The pressure kept building up again and again. And I just got to a point where I'm like, this is too much. You know, I knew what I wanted to do, and this is my life, man. This is what I've worked so hard for. And the real breaking point for me was one day I was sitting in an auditorium hall. So this was where the main lectures of the week were hosted in my university. So pretty much it's a huge hall. There's like at least 100 people at a time. And I was sitting at the very, very top. And for some reason on this day, I couldn't focus. I don't know why. I was just zoned out. I just staring at the wall, just looking around, just, you know, doodling in my journal. And for a second, you know, time just slowed down, and I looked down and I could see everybody in the room, in the auditorium. Something like flipped the switch in me, and I just saw everybody writing the same thing, doing the same like hand motions when you're writing at the same exact time, writing the same thing, doing the same thing at the same moment. It was like cogs in a machine. It looked so robotic, and that just something about that sight and vision just, you know, just flipped the switch in me where I was like, okay, that's it, you know, I can't take this anymore. And you know, I wanted to go all in. I wanted to become successful. I wanted to be somebody. I wanted to be somebody who achieved something great. That was just like in my mind from day one. And so I took the big step. I took the risk, and I dropped out of uni to chase my dreams. And you know, most people around me didn't agree with my decision. Family, they had different views. You know, they couldn't see the long-term vision. They're like, okay, you're making videos. What is the end purpose of this? But they couldn't see what I could see. And you see, I've realized it's not easy to have different decisions and different opinions than everyone else. It's not easy to be able to question your life path, to be able to break the norm and just step into what you want to do and what is fulfilling to you and not to other people. And societal pressure is real, you know? Once I dropped out, I did experience hard times. I did experience the pressure of just like, now I have to be successful. I burnt the bridges. Now there is no other choice. I have to make something of myself. And I went through hard times, but I kept my head up. I kept working on the channel. I kept grinding. And this is where discipline was really built. This is where I would have one meal a day. I would lock in. I would go to the gym. I would like pretty much do nothing else than just wake up, edit YouTube videos, film YouTube videos, plan the next YouTube video, and, you know, work on the community and do all this stuff. And just grind and lock in. I was so dialed. And you see, the way it really was after spending years of my life just wasting away my potential, which really hurt, not doing what I knew I was destined to do, you know, spending so much time doing the bad habits, spending so much time just wasting my life away and my time and procrastinating for years, until that just built up and it created this identity. And that's when I stumbled upon self-improvement years ago, and I started to get my life together. I started to build the discipline that I knew was going to save me. I started picking up good habits, cutting bad ones, and just working my way towards self-mastery and achievement. And when I started my YouTube channel, I just started talking more and more about discipline, consistency, and focus. And I became more and more focused. I had real accountability. It's like I'm talking about these things in my videos. So I couldn't do anything else in my life, because as soon as I did, I would feel guilty. I would feel like, you know, I'm a fraud. Like, what am I doing here? And that's what really kept me in check. That's what really made me study the game and put my mind into just developing the mindsets, the systems, and the blueprints that really make you able to achieve all the goals you set for yourself. And all those times, man, all those things that I've been through to get here, I'm so grateful, because that led me to where I am today. And if I'm not grateful, then I don't like the person I am today, which can't be. And finally, to sum everything up, me and my friend who've been working on the YouTube channel for the past months and year, and this friend is the one who's been working behind the scenes this whole time, who's been giving me hope during these dark times that really kept me going and moving forward. And we spent the last 2 months just locked in a room, working on this dream and vision, living a life of fulfillment, purpose, and drive. And just, this is the life I once dreamt of. And that's exactly why I make videos on YouTube, because I know for a fact that there is one person, at least one person out there, who's going to resonate with my message, and just one person out there whose life would change just by me sharing the ideas that have changed mine. So this is pretty much my journal, and I've written this down here. My goal for YouTube and Instagram is 200k subs on YouTube and 20k subs or followers on Instagram. And I really know the feeling of being stuck, and I know for a fact that it is discipline that just changes everything. Now, that was pretty much my story summed up in a video. So if you want to be part of this journey, then subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next videos.